Okay, so let's move to part 2 of the course. Let's briefly go through the topics again. Key areas of compatibility, expectations, intimacy, autonomy, and togetherness, and the 8 relational needs in integrative psychotherapy. Those will be the topics that we will be covering in part 2 of this course. So, what are the key areas of compatibility? I have prepared a short list for you. This is, of course, not an exhaustive list, so you can add your own areas or elements if you think of any additional ones. But the ones that I have enumerated here are those areas where problems or conflicts or just diverging viewpoints most frequently arise. These are also the areas where I would say you shouldn't expect your partner to change his or her position or viewpoint. Many women enter relationships thinking, well, I'm going to change my partner, or my partner is going to change for me. Let me tell you one thing. If at the very start of the relationship, your partner tells you that he does not want to marry, or that he does not want to marry in a church, or that if he does not want to have children, then please don't fool yourself thinking that you will change him, that you will make him change his mind, that just because he has met you and has fallen madly in love with you, he will now do a complete U-turn and change his viewpoints and positions for 180 degrees. Yes, there are individual cases where that might happen, where that can happen, but overall, don't expect your partner to change in any of these key areas, because these areas are related to our basic values and beliefs and convictions, wishes, hopes, and desires. Of course, your partner can change his mind, but he has or she has to do that independently, not because you're pressuring him or her. So let's take a look at these areas of compatibility. You might think by looking at them that they might not have much relevance, but let me assure you, they have a huge relevance. In particular, if you take into account not only the relationship you're in with your partner, but also the extended family on both sides. This pertains in particular to cultural background, religion, children, and expectations. So, cultural background. Is it completely impossible to be in a relationship, in a successful relationship, with someone who is coming from a totally different cultural background than you? No, it's not impossible. Sometimes people who are coming from different cultural backgrounds can complement each other. They can learn a lot from each other. They can grow together. They can still live in line with their own cultural values and beliefs without interfering with the other's beliefs and convictions. So if you're coming from different cultural backgrounds, it's not necessarily an obstacle. Sometimes it can be a challenge, in particular, if the cultural background is strongly tied to your religion and religious views. Again, nothing is impossible so long as both of you are willing to compromise on certain issues, so long as both of you know how to set boundaries and stick to those boundaries, so long as you don't try to force one another into changing sides or into adopting new beliefs and convictions. Cultural differences, religious differences can enrich a couple. They also can be a challenge, in particular when you have children and you have to decide according to which culture or religion they will be brought up. When it comes to values that will be important in your family, sometimes culture and religion have a limited impact on your values or your beliefs. Other times, they have a huge impact. It also depends on how strongly you affiliate with a certain cultural belief or religious belief. If you are very strongly religious and your partner is not, then you might have difficulties, especially if, I don't know, you expect your partner to follow all of the religious rules and rituals and attend church regularly, and your partner does not want to do that. You can, of course, go to church alone, but the question is, how will the broader community, how will your congregation see you and your relationship and your partner? There can be a lot of prejudice, especially when it comes to cultural and religious backgrounds. So if you are starting to date someone who is coming from a completely different cultural and religious background than you are, you have to discuss those issues up front in order to avoid any misunderstandings or conflicts in the future. Diversity is fine, it enriches us all. However, when it comes to certain basic beliefs and convictions, those are usually immovable. And if they are conflicting with those of our partners, well, we have a huge problem. Couples who are very adherent to a specific culture or a specific religion will find it difficult to be with somebody who does not share the same values and convictions, if for no other reason, for practical reasons. Like I said, if you or your partner are churchgoers and the other one is not, well, then Sundays or whichever day you're attending church will be spent apart. And I don't think a wider community would understand that. Or, I don't know, perhaps they will judge it, perhaps they will frown upon it. It could have an impact on your relationship as well, especially if you're then active in that cultural or religious community and your partner does not want to participate in any of the events that are organized within that framework. So culture and religion are two important elements that have to be factored in whenever you're deciding to share your life with someone and to have a family with someone. Another contentious issue is gender roles. And this brings us back to our family patterns and beliefs. What is the role of a man? What is the role of a woman? How is one supposed to act? How is the other supposed to act? Can both be breadwinners, or can only men be earning money? What happens if a woman is more successful in her career and earns more money than the man does? Is that a problem? Would that be considered inappropriate, not only within your couple, but in the extended family as well? Because you have to understand, when you marry someone, you sort of marry the in-laws as well, unless you want to detach from them completely, which again is a questionable choice, because if your partner is very much attached to his family and you don't like them very much, then how are you going to be spending big holidays or birthdays or other important life events? Separate, together, in a friendly way, not so friendly way? So those are important issues, and gender roles are frequently the source of friction in a relationship. So who is going to be bringing up children? Who is going to be a stay-at-home parent? One, both, none of you? That's an option as well, but then you have to decide who will be looking after the children. Your parents or your partner's parents? Will you hire a nanny? Those are all relevant issues. So who is in charge of the household? Who does all the household chores? Who does all the technical work? Who changes the light bulb? Who mows the lawn? Who fixes things? It might sound like an irrelevant issue, but quite often differing views of gender roles can cause quite a lot of tension and conflict and friction in a relationship. So if you're a woman who wants to have an independent career, if you're a woman who is very successful and earns a lot of money and would like to spend some time at home with children, but still continue with your career, then you have to negotiate that with your partner. Because if your partner does not share a similar view like you do, then you will be having difficulties. Children, that is another important topic to cover whenever you are discussing your future life with the person you're currently in love with. Again, if a man says he doesn't want children, if a woman says, I don't want to have children, then you better believe them. Sometimes people change their minds. It's not impossible. But children is one of those issues where we tend to have very strong beliefs and convictions for different reasons. We all have our own reasons why we feel a certain way. But if your partner is very clear about not wanting to have children, then you should respect that. Don't marry your partner and then blame him for not wanting to have children. He told you that at the very beginning. You just chose to ignore that. And the same goes for someone who wants to have 10 children. If you only want to have one or two and your partner wants to have several, well, you have a problem because you'll have to negotiate how many children you will have together. Sex and intimacy, we will be talking about that in part 3, but sex and intimacy are also an area where a lot of drama plays out. Sex and intimacy is the battlefield of the couples, because when couples are having problems, sex and intimacy is the area where those problems reflect themselves very often. If you're having problems in the bedroom, that too will have an impact on all of the other areas of your relationship. Finances, who is the breadwinner, who is not? Who can earn more money? Can both of you earn a lot of money? Do you have a joint account? How is the joint money spent? On what can you spend it? Does each of you have an additional separate account or separate budget to use for personal things or not? Who is in control of the money? Do you have a joint savings account? Can you use your partner's money if you're not earning enough to pay for your extravagancies and luxury? Finance is a topic that is often the source of conflict and resentment in a couple. And not only that, money is always an instrument of power and control. Usually, the one who has more money has more power and control. That's sadly how it is. So if you and your partner are not earning more or less the same, and if you have very specific viewpoints as to how money can or shouldn't be spent, then you need to discuss that upfront. Otherwise, you will have a lot of difficulties. Friends and family, that is quite a vast area where much can happen. Let's say that you are very much in love with your partner, but you absolutely hate his friends. What do? Do you demand your partner to just change friends, no longer see them? Or do you just request that you don't see them together? Do you attend any of the events where they are present? If you have to attend those events, do you have to be super polite and not express your opinion or show how you feel. The same applies to family, with the caveat that it's more difficult to ditch family than friends usually. So who will you be spending your next Christmas with? Your parents or his parents? Will you be inviting both sets of parents to your home? Who will do the cooking? Do you invite the extended family or not? How often do you see your extended family? Do your parents and his parents have any say in the upbringing of your children? Can they interfere into how you manage your finances? Can they come over whenever they want to? Do they have the key to your home? How often do you want to spend time with them? Do you go on holidays together? Can you help them financially? Should you help them financially if they have difficulties? What happens if your parents or his parents fall ill? Do you take them in? Do you finance their care? All these are issues that eventually crop up because life happens and we need to be prepared. So it's better to talk about all these issues up front so that at least you know where each of you stands. Those positions and convictions can, of course, change when something really happens. It's one thing to have a principled position in theory, and another one to have a position when an event occurs. Holidays. How do you go on holidays? Where do you go on holidays? Who is financing those holidays? Do you travel luxuriously? Do you travel low key? If one of you is earning more than the other, who pays for holidays if you have to go somewhere extravagant and exotic? Do you even take holidays, or do you just stay at home, or do you work all the time? Is taking time off something you frown upon? You have a negative view on taking time off? That's an important thing to consider as well. If, for example, one of you loves camping and the other one loves luxury spas and resorts, where do you go on holiday? Do you go together? Do you go separately? Do you find some middle ground? Do you spend some time together and some time apart? Who will finance all of those holidays? That's just for you to keep in mind. And housing. Housing is also of key importance because where you are going to live is essential. Do you want to live in a flat? Do you want to live in a house? Do you want to live in a city? Do you want to live in the countryside? Would you be, I don't know, renting something out if you have two flats? Will you have two separate residencies? Will you be buying your own home? Will you be co-owners? Will just one of you be the owner? It's all relevant. You don't think of it when you start a relationship, but eventually we'll have to decide where you want to live. Because if you have conflicting views as to where you should live, then I guess it will be difficult for you to find consensus and decide on your own home. But home is an important place. It should be your safe haven. It should be a place where you feel safe and loved and secure and happy. So these key areas of compatibility are definitely worth considering. It doesn't mean that you have to see eye to eye on every one of these areas, but it is advisable for you to at least share some common interests or have a similar viewpoint of at least some of them, because all of these areas are potentially contentious, if not at the beginning of the relationship, then later on in life. And if you have completely conflicting views, then you're going to have a lot of difficulties finding common ground. And if you don't find common ground, then one of you will constantly feel deprived, or that he or she has to compromise more than the partner, and will have a feeling that well, you cannot ever decide on anything because your partner is making all of the choices and decisions. So be mindful of these key areas of compatibility. They can be problematic. Another hugely important topic are expectations. We all have expectations. It's an illusion to think or to pretend that we don't have them. Some of us have more specific expectations, others have very general expectations. Both are okay. But expectations are something that we have to deal with ourselves. Expectations can be discussed within the couple, but you have to sort them out by yourself first. Question number one, do you have expectations? There are people who say have no expectations and just go with the flow and are okay with whatever comes. Other people are very specific and very rigid. So are your expectations specific and rigid? By specific and rigid, I mean that you have a very clear idea of what you expect and how you expect that to be done. So can your expectations only be fulfilled in one manner? Or do you have expectations about a specific goal and you allow for different ways of attaining that goal? Because if you're too rigid in your expectations, then your partner will probably never fulfill your expectations, especially if your partner is completely different from you. And if you have such rigid expectations, then I suggest you fulfill them yourself. Otherwise, you will be constantly disappointed and frustrated and angry with your partner, who in fact is not to be blamed for your high, rigid, specific expectations. Do you have clear expectations of yourself in the relationship? So do you expect yourself to behave, feel, act, experience things in a relationship? Do you have expectations about what this relationship should look like, how it should feel like? Do you have specific expectations from your partner? Please don't say no, because I know most of us have expectations, not only from ourselves, but from our partners as well. And we tend to get very disappointed and angry and frustrated and sad because our expectations were not fulfilled or because our partners did not meet our expectations. By the way, have you ever expressed your expectations clearly? Because if you implicitly expect your partner to know what you want, think again, your partners are not mind readers. They cannot know what exactly it is that you're expecting from them. So what are your expectations, hopes, and beliefs regarding the nature of the relationship? For example, do you want to be committed to one another? Do you want to take that to a higher level and get married? Do you want to move in together? Do you want to have children? Those are all questions that need to be asked when thinking about what you are expecting from your relationship. Are your expectations unrealistic or too idealistic? Are your expectations a fantasy that will never be fulfilled? Because that can happen too, that our expectations are too high. I'm very much in favor of having high expectations, because if you have high expectations, then you will achieve a lot. If your expectations are low, well, then you will always be underperforming. That's just how it is. And it's always better to aim higher and reach lower than to aim lower and to reach even below lower, if you know what I mean. So expectations, how realistic are they? Don't, shoot for the moon and reach for the stars if you know up front it's going to be nearly impossible to achieve, especially if you expect your partner to fulfill your expectations. If you have very high expectations, have high expectations of yourself. Be a little more lenient when it comes to your partner and your relationship. Of course, there are things that we don't negotiate or compromise on. For example, if fidelity is very important to you, then if your partner cheats on you, that's a no-go. That's clear. Or, for example, if you expect to be living together with your partner before buying property together or before getting married, then that's an expectation that has to be fulfilled because it's one of your core beliefs. And when you are having expectations, to ask yourself, are these expectations truly yours, or have they been projected onto you? Are the expectations you have something that you have inherited from your family or from your friends? Are your expectations the result of the external pressure coming from your friends or from your boss or from whomever else? And what do you do if your expectations are not met? Does every expectation that you have to be met? If your expectations are not met 100% or in the exact way that you envisaged it, what do you do? Do you leave your partner? Do you get angry with your partner and blame him for not meeting your expectations? Do you take care of the expectations yourself and fulfill them yourself? That's also an important element to consider, especially when it comes to the expectations related to some essential elements in a relationship that are not subject to compromise or to negotiation, like having children, fidelity, buying property together, and all of the other key areas of compatibility that we talked about previously. When it comes to expectations, now we've mentioned these previously when we were talking about the collusive types of relationships. What to do if your expectations are not met? Martin Sperry, not Helen Fisher, I've made a mistake here. Martin Sperry says, forgiveness, acceptance, compromise, tolerance, or put it shortly, fact. If nothing changes, the status quo suits you. If there has to be change because the status quo is unbearable, well, either you agree to separate and move on, or you start working on your problems. If neither one of you wants to stick with the status quo or separate, there has to be change. And in relationships, you always have to negotiate and compromise to a certain extent. And when it comes to expectations, you have to ask yourself, how much can you accept? On what can you compromise? How much can you tolerate? And can you forgive? Forgiveness, by the way, is a magic word in every relationship. So long as you're capable of forgiving your partner, there is hope for a relationship to continue, regardless what kind of difficulties you have experienced. If you're incapable of forgiving your partner, then I strongly suggest you move on. Don't stay in a relationship with someone whom you cannot forgive, for example, meeting your expectations, because you will forever and ever be blaming that person, and you will probably clearly demonstrate that to your partner at whatever opportunity you get. And this will only lead to further conflict and, bad blood, which you don't need in a relationship. You want relationships to be happy, functioning, loving, respectful. Now, personality differences. Yes, we're all different. We all have different traits and characteristics, but personality differences do need to be taken into account for one very simple reason. You cannot change your partner. If your mission in life is to change your partner, to make your partner more to your liking, then good luck. You will be losing a lot of time and energy and nerves and who knows what else, but you will never change your partner. The only person you can change is yourself. So if personality differences between you and your partner are unacceptable to you, then you should probably be looking for a different partner, somebody who is more compatible with you. Personality differences pertain not only to your sense of humor or your values or your core principles. They also pertain to, for example, affection, feelings, needs, giving, order, as in how orderly you are, money, language, age difference, prior living together or not. What do I mean by affection and feelings? Well, some of us are very touchy-feely and we like to hug and we like to cuddle and we like to express our emotion and show our affection. If our partner cringes at the very thought of it, well, guess how that will make us feel. If we want to hug somebody and that person just becomes all rigid and stiff, it's not a very pleasant experience. So if you are a very emotional, affective person, then it's best that you find somebody who is at least receptive for all of those feelings and emotions you're expressing. The best option would, of course, be to find somebody who is equally comfortable in expressing the emotions. But if your partner is not equally comfortable expressing and sharing his emotions, then at least make sure that he is receptive for what you're expressing. Otherwise, you will constantly feel rejected, like you're too emotional, that you're not in control, that you should, pull yourself together, stiff upper lip and stuff like that. Needs. Are needs to be expressed in a relationship or not? What happens if I express my needs? Do I expect my partner to fulfill them immediately? Should he fulfill them? Or should perhaps I fulfill them myself with his help? Needs, that's something we all have. Some of us are more in touch with our needs and wishes and desires, others less so. Some of us are more comfortable expressing them, even demanding our needs be met, others less so. But what happens if your partner is not comfortable or not skilled at expressing needs? How can he still communicate to you that he has certain needs? Or will you be so attuned to your partner that you will know which needs need to be met? Giving. There is always some give and take in relationships, but if you're always giving and never getting anything back, you might start feeling like you're on, well, I was going to say on the receiving end, but not on the receiving end. You're the one actually giving a lot of love and attention and devotion. If you're the one who's constantly giving presents or compliments or whatever, and you never receive anything back, either you're okay with that, and if you're not okay with that, what do? Do you just decrease the level of your giving, or do you give up giving altogether? How do you tell your partner that you would want him to give more of anything? It doesn't have to be presents. It can be time or attention, or I don't know, to give more emotion, anything, whatever it is that you would like to receive. Now, order. That can be quite a contentious issue, especially if one of you is very orderly and the other one doesn't care if your apartment hasn't been vacuumed in 2 weeks or a month. If one of you is very strict and the other is more relaxed, then I guess you should negotiate either the middle ground or decide on who it is that's going to be in charge of keeping your apartment clean. But order does not only relate to being orderly in the sense of cleaning the apartment. It also means paying bills, doing all of the other chores that need to be done. I don't know, like taking your car to a body shop, or watering flowers, or remembering to send postcards for holidays or something like that. We've already touched upon money. Language more in the sense of languages of love. Perhaps you have heard of the 5 languages of love. That is how we are expressing love, how we would like love to be expressed to us. If I, for example, think that love is expressed in XYZ and you are expressing it in ABC, then I might feel that you don't love me because you're not expressing it in XYZ, and you will be all confused because to you, expressing love means ABC. So if I think that the greatest expression of love from my partner is if he continues to buy me lots of presents, and he thinks that an expression of love is him willing to spend lots of time with me, then we're sort of incompatible. So talk to your partner about the 5 languages of love and how you want love to be expressed. Or talk about how you believe love is expressed, so that the other one would know that you are expressing love, even though previously he had not understood it that way. Age difference. Well, if we have an older man and a younger woman, usually there is no problem. The society is quite willing to accept huge age differences in couples where the man is older than the woman. The other way around, well, it depends on the society. But even in the Western liberal society, women who have younger partners still get frowned upon. So if age difference is something that you or your extended family will have huge difficulties with, then it's worth considering if you want to be in that relationship or not. It's really advisable to try to minimize the contentious issues to the extent possible. I know people can fall in love in different stages of their lives. I know that love doesn't choose. We can fall in love with someone who is much older or much younger than we are. That's just life. But if you are in a relationship where there is a huge age difference, there are certain things that you need to factor in as well. For example, if we take a younger woman who is in a relationship with a much older man, let's say there is a 20-year age difference between them. If the woman is in her mid-20s or mid-30s, she will probably still want to have children. Will her 20 years old partner still want to have children, given that he's almost old enough to be her father, that he's at an age when he should already be granddad? And here is where we're coming back to expectations. So if I am a 25-year-old woman dating someone who's, let's say, 50, and I want to have children, is it realistically of me to expect him to want to have children? Should I force him into having children? Do I have the right to be disappointed if he repeatedly tells me he no longer wants children because he already has 3 grown-up children? That's just one aspect that you have to be mindful of if you are in a relationship where there is a huge age difference between the partners. Then lifestyle as such. If you are a fairly young 30-something who loves to party and you're dating someone who is 60 years old, is that person gonna be clubbing with you all night or not? Will that relationship have a negative impact on your social life? Will you change for your partner? Will you start spending more time at home? Will you just let go of all the partying and the clubbing that meant so much to you before you met him. Then health issues. When we get married, we usually say, you know, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Well, when illness strikes, many people just abandon their relationship because it's too taxing, especially if our partners get very ill, if they have an incurable disease. What do? Well, you have to sort those things out with yourself and by yourself. If you say forever in sickness and in health, then I suppose you should stand by your partner. But if any one of you becomes ill or, I don't know, disabled in some way, that will definitely have an impact on your life, on your relationship, and the relationship you were in will dramatically change. This applies to all couples, but in relationships where one partner is significantly older than the other, it's much more likely that the younger partner will have to deal with an ailing, aging partner. And what to do then? And if you are dating someone who is much older and their sex drive is not at the same level as yours, how much intimacy do you want with that person? If that person cannot give you sexual gratification, or if that person does not want to be intimate for whatever reason, or cannot be intimate, what do? Do you stay sort of celibate in that relationship? Do you negotiate to have a lover? Those are all issues that need to be factored in, because we are different. When two people come together, they form a new unit, a relationship that is a combination of both. It's the total sum of two individuals who create something additional. And we all have expectations in relationships. And if our expectations are not met because of the personality differences we willfully ignored, what do? And what do we do if we are unhappy and have children with that person? Do we stay until the bitter end? Do we separate? Do we try couples counseling? Those are all issues that need to be reflected a little bit upon before engaging in a new relationship. Intimacy and autonomy. Yeah, if we are in a relationship with our life partner, then we kind of expect that relationship to be intimate. But intimacy doesn't mean that we are fused with our partner, that we are merged. We are still two individuals co-creating a relationship. So how do we negotiate intimacy? And I'm not talking just about sexual intimacy in general. How much do you share with your partner? How much intimate time do you spend with your partner? How much intimacy do you allow in your relationship? What does intimacy mean to you? How much autonomy can you have in your relationship? Can you go out with your friends alone without your partner? Can you have hobbies of your own? Can you do things independently, or do you have to do everything together with your partner? Can you go on holidays alone, or would that be weird? So intimacy and autonomy, closeness and separateness. How do we spend the time when we're together? How do we tolerate separateness? Do we want to be separate every now and then? When it comes to closeness and separateness, intimacy and autonomy, do we have separate bedrooms, or do we sleep in the same bedroom? How much togetherness do we need? How much space does each of us need? The issue of separation and individuation comes very much into play when debating and negotiating togetherness and space. Women in particular feel rejected, unwanted, unloved every time their partners want to do something alone, even if they just want to go out for a beer with their friends on a Friday night, or if they want to go sailing for a weekend with the boys. Women perceive that as a threat, sort of as, is there something wrong with our relationship? Why doesn't he want me to go with him? So togetherness in space, closeness and separateness, that is something that the two of you need to discuss openly and sincerely, without accusations and without putting pressure on each other. Adaptability and rigidity. Just how adaptable are you? How willing are you to compromise? Are you very rigid in your own ways of thinking, experiencing emotions, behaving? Are you flexible or not? Do you want your partner to fit into your framework? Do you want to squeeze into him and then pester him to change it? Do you co-create a new framework together? Do you complement each other and meet somewhere when your paths cross? Acceptance and rejection. How open are you to new ideas? How open are you to new suggestions? Are you accepting your partner as it is? How easily do you feel rejected? If your partner does not pick up the phone, for example, for 4 hours, do you feel panicky, rejected, like he doesn't love you anymore? Enmeshment and disengagement. Just how fused do you want to be with your partner? Does your partner feel the same? If you do not want the same degree of intimacy and fusion, then you're going to be having difficulties, because one of you will always feel rejected and abandoned, and the other one will always feel pressured and chased after, and none of you will be happy. You will both be resentful and angry and sad and disappointed and all that comes with it. Engulfment and abandonment is similar to enmeshment and disengagement. And independence and codependence. What are the areas where you would like to have more independence? Where would you like to be more codependent? We've talked about the key areas of compatibility before, and this is a topic that fits in perfectly with those areas of compatibility. How much independence do you want for yourself? In which areas? Do you want to be independent when it comes to money? Do you want to be independent when it comes to visiting your part of the family? Do you want to be codependent when it comes to raising your children? Do you want your partner to be completely independent in choosing your holidays or in, I don't know, buying a home? Those are all issues that need to be negotiated. And the closer your viewpoints are, the better. You don't have to be fully compatible in each and every area to 100%. But if you notice that you and your partner have completely divergent views in areas that are very important to you, then you have to face the music. You will not change your partner. Your partner will not change for you or because of you. And in that case, it's better to part ways before any resentment grows. So much about intimacy and autonomy more in general. Okay. Identity, autonomy, and togetherness. This is a quote from David Schnarch's book. He says, Helen Fisher found that over time, romantic love engages parts of your brain that map other people's thoughts and emotions. Well, these parts map your own feelings too. They are central to self-awareness and your sense of having a self. In other words, the same neurons that let your partner become a real person in your mind also support your sense of self. This leads to the inevitable battles of identity, autonomy, and togetherness. I haven't yet talked about the so-called mapping of your partner's mind. But when you are together with someone, you can envisage what that person is thinking and feeling and experiencing, what they want to do, which is great because this gives you some sense of predictability. But it can also happen that your partner shuts off completely and does not allow you to map his mind. And then you're sort of wandering in the dark. It's important for you to be able to at least slightly map the mind of your partner, because if you can map your partner's mind, it will be easier for you to understand what your partner is really thinking and feeling, because sometimes what we say is not very congruent with how we feel. And if you understand how your partner sees identity, autonomy, and togetherness, it will be easier for you to negotiate those issues as well. So before I start discussing relational needs, allow me another quote by Carol Martin Sperry. She says that a good relationship with the right psychological partner gives each a chance to work through past difficulties and to break repetitive patterns. So basically, relationships are really good for our personal development and our personal growth. Relational needs are present from the day we were born. People need relationships in order to grow, develop, thrive, and to interact. And you probably know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Relational needs are something different. Of course, Maslow's basic needs have to be fulfilled. All of the needs from his pyramid have to be fulfilled in order for us to be thriving, successful, and happy individuals. But when we are talking about relational needs in the context of integrative psychotherapy, we are talking about the basic needs that have to be fulfilled in our relationship. Erskine and Troutman defined the 8 relational needs that we seek to fulfill in our significant and intimate relationships. Mind you, though, relational needs, the 8 relational needs, don't have to be all of them fulfilled in our intimate relationship. It's wonderful if our partner meets most of our relational needs. What is important is that the 8 relational needs are met in one or the other relationship. If they are met in our intimate relationship, great. If not, we will have to find a way to fulfill those relational needs that are not met in our intimate relationship somewhere else and in a different way. It is true that other needs exist in our life as well, like basic needs for food, shelter, love, and so on and so forth. These 8 needs are of key importance if we want to strengthen the quality of our lives and our sense of self in a relationship. Relational needs form a constitutive part of our relationships, and therefore, they are not relevant just as our childhood needs. They are very much important also in our later relationships, especially intimate relationships. And if we want to satisfy these needs, we of course need to find somebody who is, first of all, capable of establishing genuine contact, meaning that that person has to be emotionally open, as attuned to us as possible, and that person, our partner, has to be willing to share his or her emotions. And it's important that this person is contact-full, meaning open for contact, either cognitively, psychologically, emotionally, or physically. Because contact is what we need first and foremost in every relationship. And this contactful person of ours, preferably our partner, should be sensitive and attuned to our relational needs. And hopefully our partner will provide us with reciprocal needs, with reciprocal response to our needs. For example, if our parents or if our previous partners were not able to fulfill the relational needs that we have, we will have to find a new relationship, a new person who will fulfill those relationships. And if we cannot satisfy those needs in an intimate relationship, they can always be, at least to a certain extent, fulfilled in a therapeutic relationship. So what are the famous relational needs? Here they are. The need for security, the need for validation, affirmation, and significance within a relationship, the need for acceptance by a stable, dependable, and protective other person, the need to have our personal experience confirmed or validated, the need for self-definition, the need to have an impact on the other person, the need to have the other initiate, and the need to express love. Now, if you go a little more into detail, what do these relational needs truly mean? The need for security means that we need to know and feel that we are physically and emotionally protected, that we can show our vulnerabilities. We need to know that the different feelings and needs that we are experiencing are normal and completely natural. That's the sense of security, that I know that I can be who I am, that I can feel and experience whatever I am feeling and experiencing without anyone questioning that or dismissing that or shaming me for that. Having security also means that we can be simultaneously vulnerable and in harmony with another. So we feel that we can be vulnerable and sincere and open and honest about our fears with our significant other, because our partner gives us a secure space in which we can express all of those emotions. And of course, the need for security also includes the absence of actual, perceived, or anticipated danger. You know that sometimes we don't share intimate thoughts and feelings because we are afraid that something might happen as a result of it. We might fear what our partner's reaction will be. We might be ashamed that we are having those feelings and thoughts. So the sense of security also means that we are not thinking about any potential danger that threatens us should we express our needs and emotions. Of course, both partners have to feel secure. So it's a reciprocal process. It's not just that my partner will be providing me with security and I don't give anything in return. No, security has to be mutual. And security is best provided if we are attuned to our partners, meaning that we can empathically sense what our partner is going through, that we know more or less what our partner needs and wants emotionally. So we have to be empathically aware also of our partner's needs for security, and we should respond reciprocally to that need. So whenever our partner expresses this need to feel secure, we should try to provide him with that sense of security. And it is also true that only if we feel safe and secure, we dare to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable takes a lot of courage, because when we openly express our vulnerability, we can become an easy target or an easy prey for somebody who wants to take advantage of us or manipulate us or abuse us in one way or another. And also at a nonverbal level, our partner has to communicate that what we are feeling and experiencing is something completely normal, acceptable, that it's okay. Security means that we should not be discounted or invalidated or shamed for what we are feeling. The sense of security is best described as coming home, that we feel at home and secure in a relationship where we are comfortable expressing whatever it is that we are feeling or thinking. Then the need for validation, affirmation, and significance within a relationship. I think this one is more or less self-explanatory, but within a relationship, we would, of course, like our partner to validate what we are experiencing. For example, if I say that I feel sad or depressed or that I'm afraid, that my partner will not say, well, there's no need for you to feel like that, you're being irrational. No, we need this external validation and affirmation that we are okay if we feel the way that we feel. We were talking previously about how important it is for us to have a solid sense of self. The more solid sense of self we have, the less external validation and affirmation we will be looking for. But it is still important that our partners validate what we are experiencing, because in this way they are demonstrating that they understand how we're feeling, that they can empathize with what we're feeling. So our phenomenological, which means experiential, emotional, and cognitive experience, as well as fantasies and meanings that we attribute to events, should be validated, should be affirmed, should be given significance in a relationship. For example, if I say that the miscarriage I had a negative impact on our sexual life, and my partner says, well, no, I'm not seeing it like that, I feel completely different, then I guess I'm going to be a bit offended. I will feel misunderstood. I will feel as if my feelings are not valid. That's why it's important for my partner to validate that what I'm feeling is true, is genuine, even though he might feel completely different. So significance within a relationship means that we have to feel important in the relationship. It doesn't mean that the relationship is all about us. It's just that we have to have this sense that we matter, that what we are feeling is important, that what we think is relevant, that we as individuals have a meaning, a significance in this relationship. Then acceptance by a stable, dependable, and protective other person. Preferably, that person is our partner. Acceptance means that no matter how we are feeling, we are still accepted. And we like to know that there are reliable people in our lives whom we can call upon whenever we are experiencing some kind of difficulties, or even if we want to share an exciting news or something positive. It's good to know that there are stable, dependable, protective other people in our lives who will validate us, who will accept us for who we are, who will rejoice together with us, and who will, of course, when it comes to protective other persons, give us guidance and advice when we need it. And hopefully the advice they give us is the advice we will take heed of, because we trust the person who has given us that advice. Confirmation of personal experience is perhaps a bit more tricky, because you have to be emotionally attuned to your partner, and not only that, you need to be on the same wavelength if you wish to have your personal experience confirmed. I know we can all say, yes, I understand how you're feeling, but you have to really feel it to be able to confirm the personal experience of someone else. I think soulmates is really the best descriptor for this confirmation of personal experience. Of course, soulmates are very far and few in between. So it's advisable to have a partner who is similar to us when it comes to, for example, our cultural beliefs, our spiritual inclinations, our religious beliefs. Someone who shares this more spiritual dimension or cultural dimension or whatever you call it will much more easily share what we are experiencing because we come from the same emotional, psychological, and mental framework. Self-definition. I think that is one of the core relational needs in every relationship, because when we enter a relationship, we invariably change. Relationships change us. It's impossible not to be changed by another person, by the relationship. And self-definition means that when we are in a relationship, we should also have the possibility to self-express, to redefine ourselves if we want to. We want to have the opportunity to be who we really are, to be true to ourselves within the relationship without being afraid that our partner will not acknowledge or accept that. Self-definition means that we have the liberty to decide what our identity will be in that relationship and how we will express it. And it's important that our partner does not reject or humiliate us for who we are, just because we are expressing our personality or our true self. The need to have an impact on the other person. This is similar to having a significance within a relationship. Having an impact means that we have an influence on our partner. It doesn't mean that we're pressuring our partner. It doesn't mean that we're manipulating with him. It's just that we would like to have this sense that we are significant, that we matter in a relationship, that our opinions count, that if our partner asks us for advice and we give him an advice, well, then they take that advice into account, that they don't just, discard it as irrelevant. We need to know that we can have an effect on our partner, meaning that we can also slightly modify his behavior if that behavior is causing us a lot of problems. And also having an impact means that we can, for example, excite our partner for our hobbies or for something that interests us, that maybe we can have an influence on, I don't know, what books they are reading or what movies they are watching, that we can help them expand their horizons or something like that. So meaning that we have an impact, that we are relevant, that we're not insignificant. Then the need to have the other initiate. Women in particular are very sensitive to this specific need. I am certain that you have been in a relationship where you thought, gosh, why does it always have to be me? Why do I always have to initiate things? Why do I always have to suggest things? Most of the time. When it comes to sex, it's usually men who initiate, and they get fed up with that too, by the way. But it's really good if we are in a relationship where we don't have this need to initiate all the time, thinking if I don't initiate, nothing will ever happen. So this need to initiate also relates to establishing contact. You know how sometimes partners just live as if they were roommates, they almost lead separate lives under the same roof. And when they do that, there is very little contact between them. And it's really nice when one partner or the other initiates contact, suggests something. Nobody wants to feel responsible for initiating activities all the time, be it interpersonal contact, having sex, going on holiday and stuff like that. We would like our partners to reach out to us as well, so that it's not just us who initiates. We need some reciprocity in a relationship. And the need to express love. This brings us back to the question of expressing feelings, affection. How do we cope with feelings? Are feelings okay or aren't they? There are, of course, many ways of expressing love and understanding love. I've mentioned the 5 love languages before by Chapman. I suggest you read that book because it's quite informative and it can help you negotiate within your relationship what it means to express love and how you would like love to be expressed to you. For example, we can provide love to our partner by being gentle, by providing loving care, by being grateful, by doing something for them, or by spending time with them, by buying them gifts, or I don't know, just being there, present for them when they need us. And if we are refused the possibility to express love, we sort of feel thwarted, as if somebody shut us out completely. It's not a pleasant feeling. So even if our partner is not that receptive to receiving love, we should talk to him or her about our need to express love. Because if we are a very bubbly, emotional, feelings all over the place person, and we like to express our feelings and our love in particular, we will feel rejected and unwanted and unloved if our partner is not receptive to all of the love that we are sharing. So these are the key 8 relational needs in integrative therapy. Like I said before, it's perfect if you have a partner who fulfills all of the 8 relational needs. Not many partners do that. So if your partner only fulfills, 3 out of 8, don't blame your partner, don't judge your partner. You can still fulfill the other 5, or however many you need to, somewhere else, either by yourself or in a different relationship. For example, if you need to have, an impact on another person, you can have an impact on your friends as well. If you need to have a confirmation of personal experience, you can also talk to your best friend and tell her how you're feeling and what you're thinking. Surely in some areas, your best girlfriend will relate much more to what you're experiencing than your male partner. So you have to look at these 8 relational needs as a total. And the more relational needs that you have fulfilled, the better. If all of the relational needs are fulfilled in one single relationship, that's perfect. If they're not, that's okay as well, so long as you know how you will fulfill the other unmet relational needs somewhere else. So we have come now to the end of part 2. I hope that you have now gained some knowledge as to what you need to be mindful of when choosing your partner, which are the tricky areas that you need to negotiate carefully, which are the areas where you have to be more or less compatible completely, which are the personality differences that could have a potentially negative impact on your relationship and how to resolve those. And most importantly, I think when choosing your next partner or when working on your current relationship, look at the 8 relational needs to see which needs are already met, which needs to be met as yet, and how you can best fulfill those needs. And we are moving on to part 3, where we will be talking about sex and intimacy, and desire and passion.